Time for a Pokemon lesson.
Wait, please don't hang up.
Haha! A brand new Pokemon game is out. It's like they come around like the flu, by which I mean literally every single year. But have you ever thought about Pokemon types? That's right, I'm here to explain to you the logic behind every single Pokemon type matchup. Hello there, welcome to the world of Pokemon. I'm Sassafras. People call me the Pokemon Professor. I mean, I swear they do. Like, seriously, I have a certificate and everything. I didn't just, buy a doctorate online from a mysterious online foreign university or anything. It would do something like that. This world is inhabited by creatures called Pokemon. Some people keep them as pets. Others use them to kill. And that's what I study. Each Pokemon has a type, an elemental affinity of sorts, which dictates its strength and weaknesses. For example, I'm led to believe that I'm human. This means that I have various weaknesses, such as light, guns, knives, I draw breath, and of course, emotional damage. Sweet existence. Do you ever feel that fundamentally, deep down, you'll never make a true emotional connection with another person? And that's entirely at your fault and your own inability to trust another person fully with your life and your emotions, and therefore spend the rest of your days wallowing away in a never-ending loneliness.
Come on, man.
In Pokemon, there are 18 different types, and we're going to be looking at what happens when each one fights another one, which takes us to the mythical type chart with 324 interactions. Oh, Jesus. But we're specifically looking at, the ones where something actually happens, where there's an effect of some form that's not just nothing, which leaves us at roughly 150 interactions. And that is important because that's how many we're going to be looking at today. Yeah! Thankfully, we can start off with some very easy ones. Here we go. Water puts out fire. Fire does not put out water. Fire burns grass. Grass does not plant fire. Electric is conducted by water. Ground, Earth's electric. Electric does not spark the ground. Fire melts metal. Metal is not very good at putting out fires. Ground suffocates fire. Rock suffocates fire. Fire does not combust rock. Water erodes rocks. You can't poison metal. Bugs eat plants. Plants don't really eat bugs. Well, fire burns bugs. Bugs cannot eat fire. Bird eats bug. Bug can't do shit all about it. Birds fly away from the ground. Grass eats water. Water, it just wets grass. Grass grows in ground. Ground feeds grass. Grass climbs rock, like fine. Steel breaks rock. Rock bounces off steel. Right, that monosyllabic collection of explanations has only put us at roughly 25 interactions out of 150. I really hope you're taking notes. Right, we're now going to move on to this diagonal of symmetrical violence. You can't poison poison. It's already poison. Steel versus steel is just a cool sword fight, and if you're just hitting the blades against one another, it's no real surprise it doesn't really go anywhere. They say you should fight fire with fire. No, that's just more fire. Doesn't help. If you throw plants at one another, you're just gonna form a jungle and a harmony of overwhelming and collective murder. And that's bad. Electricity will just electric with more electricity and kind of, go nowhere. It just slowly drains power somewhere. If two psychics try and read one another's mind, the feedback loop of constant emptiness will trap them forever and lead to both of their deaths. It's not very effective. Ice doesn't really change if you make it more cold. It's just ice. You can't turn regular darkness into advanced darkness. At least not until Kingdom Hearts runs out of ideas.
Did somebody mention the door to darkness?
Now you might begin to realize that, well, none of this makes any sense. You'd expect some form of unique interaction to come from each mirror matchup. And yet, well, no, because eventually it kind of runs out. For example, ground grinding on ground is fine. It is neither effective nor ineffective. However, it is someone's kink out there. Hoo-hoo. We're going to be spicing things up here with dragons. Wow. Now then, dragons are to electricity, water, fire, and grass. And this is because, well, they're like big, terrible, mythical creatures. And in Japanese mythos, they are often associated with elements, like fire dragons, sea dragons, storm dragons, where there's like electricity and stuff. And then grass snakes. They'll get you. So, obviously, dragons, big scary things, and obviously, therefore, they will be sort of immune to the elements of which they are frequently associated with. And that's what's happened here. Only a dragon has the power to defeat another dragon, as well as the strongest potion. Dragons are, however, big lizards, so they're probably cold-blooded. What happens when you make a cold-blooded creature cold? It goes into like a permanent state of hibernation / basically cryostasis. It's bad for them, and this is why. Dragons are famously weak to magic. And what are fairies if not magical? Also, they frequently are the villains / die during fairy tales, although they are normally more so a metaphor for greedy, money-hoarding local land barons or kings, in which the sort of peasant hero rises up to displace or kill or disintegrate this greedy, money-grubbing individual. And obviously, slowly but surely, these tales were twisted and changed into a noble knight who serves the kingdom instead of necessarily a peasant knight serving the people and redistributing wealth with a sword by stabbing a king. Get rid of the monarchy. Spinning over now to ghosts and normal, they are essentially polar opposites of one another. One being the physical realm and the physical body, the other being the spiritual realm and the spiritual body. I'll let you guess which one's which. And therefore, never shall the twain ever truly interact, because they are the same size of a coin, which is why they have no effect on one another. Ghosts can punch other ghosts though. Good gravy, the ghost wars were hellish. Jocks will, however, bully normies. It is the natural order of the world, and they're really good at doing it. However, notably, and this is a little side tangent, normies can fight back against the jocks, and it's not necessarily going to go badly. You cannot punch a ghost. You know those cool martial arts things where people punch their way through rocks? That's why fighting beats rock. Similarly, you know if you punch metal really hard, it hurts your hand, but also you might leave a dent. That's why fighting beats steel. The same goes for ice. You can punch through some ice. A normal person, however, will simply just break their hand if they try to punch through rock or steel. Ice is fine though, like we've all built a snowman. The fight against darkness is one that never truly ever ends. But if you're the hero and you can punch real good, you can just destroy evil with your fists. And that's what happens here. Good and the hero triumphing against evil, as it always shall. Always. But evil does corrupt the spirit, which struggles to go against the sweet, tender kiss of evil. Where was I? Right, fighting. Fighting is not very good against poison because of steroid abuse. Why not? Fighting and Bug are forever trapped in a cycle of never being able to one-up one another. You see, even the greatest martial artists will always struggle in dealing with that pesky bug. But at the same time, a bug, a fly, is just a fly. It's not really going to be able to take down, well, a man, let alone a dragon. Speaking of flying, have you ever tried to punch a bird? Impossible. Borderline unkillable. The one place my fists cannot crush. The sky. Well, you're left shaking your fist angrily at a cloud that may or may not contain more birds. The bird will swoop in, talons at the ready, and mess you up. You see, it always has the higher ground, and therefore will always win, leaving you writhing around on the floor with your limbs cut off, going like, I hate you! You know, relatable. Some birds eat plants, specifically the fruit of plants. And plants can't really do shit about it. Meanwhile, birds are not very good against steel. You throw a pigeon really hard at a tank, and well, you're just going to create a lot of mess. Oh my god, why did you even do that? What's wrong with you? Have you ever thought, a bug? Well, thankfully, using the latest technology to mankind, you can crush it with a stone. It's super effective. Ice coats and slides over the ground, like glaciers would. However, rock smashes through ice, for ice is brittle and frail, whilst rock is strong and hard. Have you ever heard the saying, hitting two birds with one stone? Well, in Pokemon you can, and it's super effective. Lightning and electricity scream through the sky with devastating effect. And if you're flying around in that sky, what's gonna happen? Well, obviously bad things. You see, birds might be able to escape gravity, but they cannot escape the roasting effects of ionized particles. Dark is super effective against psychic, and this is because the darkest of thoughts will one day corrupt your mind. Meanwhile, you cannot use your own mind to bend darkness to your own will. Have you not seen Kingdom Hearts?
Kingdom Hearts! Fill me with the power of darkness!
But also it's because Ghost, Bug, and Dark are all common fears, and therefore mess up psychics. But at the same time, I just really needed to make that Kingdom Hearts reference.
Supreme darkness!
You know, when you're climbing to the top of an icy, cold, snowy mountain, all in the hopes of one day catching and maybe killing God? Well, a nice steel pickaxe would make a nice, handy tool to achieve that sort of thing. And that's why steel is good against ice. Ice picks. Ice, however, does not melt steel beams. Now then, you might begin to realize something, and that's that, well, steel is basically resistant to everything. So let's just fill in a lot of the gaps here, okay? Bugs are not really going to be able to do anything against steel. You put a bug in a metal cube and it's just kind of where it lives now for a very short period of time. Nature will one day reclaim the world we live on. However, it's going to have a very tough time of growing and destroying metal. Most metals are very good conductors of electricity. And this is due to the fact that, well, the metals are mostly made up of very tight structures of ionized lattices, or a lattice of ionized particles, which means that it allows for very easy translocation of energized ions and electrons throughout their structure. This is why steel is not very effective against electricity. However, and this did genuinely confound and confuse me, for my entire Pokemon life, I have been suffering from this Mandela effect of sorts, where electricity was strong against steel. It makes sense. Metal conducts electricity, it's gonna f up a steel Pokemon. But at the same time, apparently, no, it does nothing. I have vivid memories as a Pokemon professor of zapping steel Pokemon with a Pikachu, but apparently that was just my dreams of animal torture and not actual science. You cannot stab water. Well, you can, it's just not gonna do a lot. Now I know what you're thinking. Surely psychics can bend spoons. Psychics can stop bullets with their mind. No. Psychics cannot read a spoon's mind. Can you read a spoon's mind? No, it's a spoon. It doesn't have a mind. All it's thinking is, I'm a spoon, or other spoon-related thoughts. And this is why psychic is not very effective against spoons, I mean steel. When you're on your grand adventure and your great quest to kill the 1%, you're gonna need some protection. So when those big dragon talons swoop in to destroy your bod, if you've got a nice little shield, those dangerous bits of keratin are gonna bounce off like a squeaky toy, and you'll be fine. Ground. That's because, you know, the ground will eventually erode and dull any sharp steel objects. Like if you stab the floor a lot, it's just gonna slowly become a dull, useless lump of metal. Now finally, we've got Fairy. Now fairies famously hate iron. Just, if you really want to ruin a fairy's day, you go over and like shank it with some iron and it'll be like, oh no, I'm dying because you shanked me with iron, my one weakness. Oh, this is why I'm dying, because of the iron. And what is steel if not a compound of iron and carbon? It's in the fairy lore. It makes sense. Right, we're nearly there. We're almost Pokemon experts, or Pokesperts, if you will. You shouldn't, but you know, you can. I don't advise it. But we're going to continue along the line of the newest type, which is fairying. Let's look at more of the fairy things, to look at the fairy. Fairies aren't very effective against fire, and this is due to things like the old will-o'-the-wisps. Now, fairy fire and other such phenomenon are brought about through bog gases and decaying items that release disgusting gases that ultimately will ignite and automatically combust when exposed to oxygen. And there's always a lot of methane around these things as well, so they create, wow, fire. So, fairy fire is not going to be very useful against fire because they are just both fire. Poison is particularly good against fairy because fairies are like the embodiment of nature and happiness and the goodness in the world. And then you come in and dump some raw sewage on the world, and that's gonna really ruin nature's day. Deforestation, pollution, man's inherent unstoppable desire to sin against the world itself. This is why fairies really hate poison. But it's not going to stop me doing it, is it?
Supreme darkness!
In a similar vein to fighting types being the hero and always punching evil to death, fairies in a similar vein are like goodness and love and heart, and good triumphs over darkness and evil because Kingdom Hearts is light.
Kingdom Hearts is light.
Because dark will inevitably lose to evil. God, I really hope so. Bugs. You think a bug knows what the f to do against a magical creature? No. Fairies are notorious tricksters. While they may provide a number of boons, they may also provide a number of curses to young, intrepid heroes who stumble upon their fairy grove. Fighting types, or the heroes, are forever at the mercy and whims of magical fairy creatures. Similarly, you can't punch a fairy to death, because when you go and do your big fight, well, they're just going to use their fairy magic to turn your fists into, like, I don't know, a snake, and then you're like, oh god, how am I meant to punch the fairy whilst I'm being attacked by the snakes that I have for hands, that I also can't punch those to death because my hands are snakes? How am I meant to defeat the one enemy, myself, and also snake for hands? Psychics are strong against fighting because the mind is stronger than the fist. And also because, you know, psychics can just make bullies essentially punch themselves in the face in the classic stop hitting yourself routine, except for this time it's quite literally mind control to do that. You know, like a bully would. Now, ice is strong against flying, and this is, you know how birds migrate south in the winter? Why not be that? Sure, birds do that primarily due to their food sources drying up during the colder months, because bugs either go into a deep hibernation or plants tend to not produce fruit, rather than some form of inherent elemental weakness. But if you were a bird and you're flying along and then you got hit by some ice and your wings turned into cartoonishly large ice cubes, you'd plummet out of the sky in no time and die. So it's that. Bugs thrive in the darkness. It's when all the creepy crawlies come out to play to ruin your day. Have you ever lifted up a dark, dank rock to reveal actual nightmare fuel as hordes of bugs and disgusting creatures writhe around? And then you're like, but thankfully you've got bugs' natural weakness, rock, and you smash it back down to destroy them. Because we've covered this, bugs are weak to rock. Poison is strong against grass, and this can be a number of things, such as pollution, weed killers, just general bad vibes ruining plants. And it just leads to the plants dying. And this is why also plants aren't very good against poison. If a land is marred with disgusting pollutants where the entire ground is spoiled and pillaged and scourged, the plants will not grow there. Nothing will grow there. You've destroyed the planet. Nothing shall ever grow or blossom ever again. There is no life. There is only death. Poison is also resistant to bug. And this is because, like, a lot of bugs are poisonous. You know when you see like a jazzy dancing bean wriggling around and like, looks tasty. Well, turns out you're probably gonna have a real bad time because it's poison. You're either gonna poop yourself inside out or just die anyway. And that's just not a good time to have, and that's why bugs and poison resist one another. They're kind of the same thing. Poison is not very good against rock because it's a rock. You can't poison a rock. Like, it's not alive, it's a rock. You're gonna poison a rock? No. Ground is super effective against poison, and this is because, like, if someone spills some poison on the floor, you can just throw a fistful of dirt on it and problem solved. It absorbs it all up. Everything's great and good gravy. You've solved the problem. It's like cat litter or something. Poison isn't very effective against the ground because it's the ground. It doesn't feel things. It doesn't feel poison. You can't poison the ground. You may begin to realize that we're really beginning to struggle with some of these last ones. That's fine, because this is what got me my professorship. I didn't just spend a couple of minutes whacking together some loose information or anything and then get bored and buy an easy and quite affordable doctorate of some form of an online university that no one's ever heard of and no one can really ever look up. I mean, who would do such a thing? Didn't do that. Instead, I did rigorous research and solved many problems. So we're going to continue with some of the easier ones. Ground will erode rock. If a rock is sliding along on the dirt, it will one day slowly erode away into nothing but sand. And that's kind of crazy when you think about it. A lot of bugs burrow around and live in the dirt, like the bumblebee. So if you throw a fistful of dirt at them, you've just given them free real estate. And that's good. Bug is not very good against ghosts, because they're like godless killing machines, and therefore they don't have any souls, so they can't interact with the spiritual realm in any meaningful way, and therefore you can't bite a ghost. Sure, for grass being resistant to electricity, I was just gonna go with when Bellsprout resisted Pikachu's electric moves when Ash was in the Elite Four, and yeah, I was gonna use that as the reason, but turns out that's always existed, this secret resistance I've ever known about. So, the science does check out though, because plants all have their roots, which seep away into the dirt, thus acting like grounding wires or earthing wires. So when a tree or a plant gets zapped by a big electric bolt, lightning bolt, 9 times out of 10, the charge immediately travels through the wood and dissipates into the ground, where it, disappears into ultimately not very damaging stuff. Like that's actual science. Ice is strong against grass because, plants can die in the cold. They get frostbite basically, or frost blight, because they're living creatures. You make them real cold, the cells are gonna kind of crystallize and freeze, and then they're gonna die. And plants don't really thrive in the cold because, they're respiring and existing. It's basic science. Get out of my room. Ghost is resistant to poison because, ghosts don't really have any biological functions to be tainted by poison. You can't poison a ghost. If you blow a cloud of neurotoxin into the face of a ghost, well, you're probably more likely to die because you've just filled the room with deadly neurotoxin. And the ghost is fine. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't have legs. It doesn't have blood and a brain that needs to function and not be filled with neurotoxin. Right? Then finally, we have psychic is strong against poison. Why is this? Why? Why is this? Well, when they're doing scientific studies on pharmaceuticals and stuff, and whether it makes people feel better or worse or something, and treating diseases, well, sometimes they often give people sugar pills, right, to see if the effects are from the pharmaceutical, the chemical, the drug, or just a sort of purely psychological placebo effect, which is real. It's a real thing where, you're like, I'm dying of a disease, and they're like, hey, have a pill, and you're, delicious sugar pill, and I'm better, I feel much better now. That's why. That's why psychic is resistant to poison. You can make yourself feel better through the placebo effect. The power of the mind. That's why. Look, sometimes they make balanced choices, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And as a Pokemon professor, I just have to try and work things out. I have to explain. It's just hard, okay? It just doesn't make any sense. Why did they do this to me? Oh, God. There we go. All 150-ish unique cases of type-on-type violence and their resistances and benefits. Hooray, it's 150, a bit like the original Pokemon. Isn't that cool? Hopefully, with this new information, you can go about your lives and see a dog on fire and be like, hey there, little fella, you don't want to be on the ground whilst you're on fire. That might put out your flames. Here, I'm going to put you into the sky, where you belong as a burning, fiery dog. And hopefully, your life's going to be much better now. Goodbye, little furry dog, who is on fire. Goodbye. Now, your very own Pokemon legend is about to unfold. A world of dreams and adventures with Pokemon awaits. Let's go! Oh, hello, thank you for watching my video. It was a bit of a weird one about Pokemon types and just desperately trying to explain how and why they might work. The answer, they don't. They really don't. But if you liked it, let me know in the comments down below, or leave a like, or your own thoughts about why certain Pokemon matchups are the way they are. Seriously, there's some very spurious ones. Also, if you're wondering why I've been very all over the place with my videos lately, it's because I accidentally wrote a 105,000 word book for a friend's birthday. Got really out of hand. It consumed my entire life for about 6 months, so I didn't really play any video games for basically half of the year. Let's try and ignore that. Can you read it? No, not really. It's probably bad, and also filled with stolen art and all sorts of bits and pieces. So probably, maybe at some point in the far distant future, you might be able to, but realistically, no. Otherwise, if you want some of my videos that I have actually made, over here there will be a video about the board game Ravine. That's quite a fun engagement to deal with. And down here there's a really fun and good video about Inscription and how the game is actually really good. And I definitely would suggest to watch it because I had a lot of fun making it. Thank you and goodbye.